Phoebe Bridgers is one of the most distinctive songwriters to emerge from the American indie and folk scene in the past decade. Born in Los Angeles in 1994, she grew up in a city where music and performance were always within reach, and early on she was drawn to emotionally raw storytelling, a quality that would come to define her songwriting. And Bridges began learning guitar as a child and started writing her own songs as a teenager. By her late teens, she was performing in small venues around LA, steadily building a reputation for her haunting voice and intimate lyrics. And before breaking out as a solo artist, she also immersed herself in collaboration and projects with other musicians, which sharpened her craft and exposed her to a range of styles within indie rock and folk tradition. Her earliest professional strides came when she was discovered by producer Tony Berg, who helped her record demos and introduced her to the other industry connections. This led to Bridgers catching the attention of Ryan Adams, under whose label she released her first notable single, Killer, back in 2015. Though the association would later become controversial, the release marked an important stepping stone, bringing wider recognition to her work. And in 2017, Bridges released her debut album Stranger in the Alps. The record showcased her signature blend of delicate vocals, confessional lyrics, and sparse yet evocative instrumentation. Songs like Motion Sickness and Funeral highlight her ability to weave vulnerability into catchy melodies, earning her critically acclaimed and cementing her as a rising voice in indie music. Following Stranger in the Alps, Bridges expanded her creative reach through a high-profile collaboration. She formed the indie supergroup Boy Genius in 2018 with fellow singer-songwriter Julian Baker and Lucy Dacus. Their self-titled EP captured the three artists' individual strengths by blending them into lush harmonies and sharp lyricism. The project was praised both as a showcase of female friendship in the indie scene and as a body of work that stood on its own artistically. Around the same time, Phoebe Bridgers also teamed up with Conor Oberst of Bright Eyes to form Better Oblivion Community Center. Their self-titled 2019 album leaned into indie rock while maintaining her introspective style, proving her versatility and willingness to explore different sonic textures.
You asked to walk me home, but I had to carry you.
Released in June 2020, Punisher arrived at a moment of collective uncertainty right at the beginning of the pandemic when listeners were especially receptive to music that captures feelings of isolation, longing, and unease. Bridges had already earned critical acclaim with Stranger in the Alps and her collaboration, but Punisher took her artistry to a new level. It was both more expansive and more focused, the songwriting sharpened, the production more adventurous, and the emotional impact deeper. The album's title references the kind of overzealous fan who monopolizes a musician's time, yet in Bridges' hand. It becomes a metaphor for a parasocial relationship, intimacy, and the blurred lines between closeness and distance. Phoebe Bridgers' Punisher, released in the summer of 2020, is an album that doesn't just unfold song by song. It unravels like a dream, or maybe more accurately, a haunting. It opens with DVD menu, a brief but striking instrumental. There are no lyrics here, just ghostly tones, unresolved chords, and a sense that something uncanny is about to begin. It feels like wanting into a dimly lit room where the air is heavy with memory, and it sets the stage for the emotional journey to come. That journey truly begins with Garden Song, one of the album's most intimate moments, and Bridges whisper through verses that blend surreal images with tender longing. The songs feel like it's suspended between reality and fantasy, between dreams of growth and the inevitability of loss. There's fragility here, but also kind of a quiet resilience. It's as if she's whispering secrets not just to a person, but to herself, acknowledging the strangeness of change and desire. And the mood shift with Kyoto, the album's most outwardly energetic track, bright horns, driving percussion, and a guitar line that feels like a rush of wind give it to the sound of an indie rock anthem. But lyrically, it's a song about guilt and dislocation, about being far from home and emotionally detached even in the midst of adventure. Bridges sings about being in Japan but not fully present, about wanting to be with someone and yet wanting to run away. The contrast between the upbeat instrumentation and the lyrical heaviness is classic Bridges, finding joy and humor in a melancholy and a melancholy in joy. And then comes the title track Punisher, a spectral song that feels almost like a seance. It's an ode to Elliott Smith, one of Bridges' greatest inspirations, and it captures the paradox of wanting to connect with someone who isn't there anymore. Her voice flows over gentle instrumentation as she imagines conversation that can never happen, an intimacy that will always remain out of reach. And in this moment, Bridges became both a fan and an artist, blurring the line between influence and creation, between presence and absence. And Halloween drifts in next, slow and shadowy. The track paints image of mask, not just the literal kind but the metaphorical disguises. We were in a relationship. It's about fleeting love, about intimacy wrapped in dread, about the way we sometimes cling to someone just to keep the loneliness at bay. The instrumentation is sparse, giving room for the lyrics to sink in like whispers in the dark. And then we have the Chinese Satellite, a song about longing for belief in something larger, something transcendent. It wrestles with doubt, religious doubt, existential doubt, and the desire to find meaning when it feels elusive. And the songs build gradually from a soft lament to a sweeping climax as Bridges confesses both her skepticism and her yearning. It's an anthem for anyone who has looked up at the sky searching for something, fate, connection, a sign, and been met with silence. And then comes the song Moon Song, which is my favorite on the album, and perhaps the most heartbreaking moment on Punisher. It's a song about unrequited love and self-sacrifice, about giving more than you receive. The lyrics are quietly devastating, and Bridges' hushed delivery makes the pain feel even sharper. She turns small images like giving someone a piece of herself or watching them love someone else into universes of sorrow. Listening to it feels like having your heart cracked open in slow motion. Savior Complex carried us deeper in the complexity of relationships. It's about a dynamic where love and dysfunction are tangled together, where tenderness becomes toxic and toxicity becomes hard to leave behind. The arrangement is spare and elegant, almost deceptively gentle, as if disguising the sharpness of the story underneath. Bridges doesn't scream the pain, she whispers it, making it all the more cutting. ICU snaps us out of the quiet intensity with raw honesty. It's a breakup song, but not in the traditional sense. It's filled with anger and humor and moments of tenderness all at once. The distorted outro sonically mirrors the chaos of separation, as though the sound itself is falling apart under the weight of conflicting emotions. It's messy, human, and brutally real. And then comes Graceland 2, one of the album's most unexpected turns. Has a folk ting and warm, is about friendship, loyalty, and healing. And Bridges is joined by her Boy Genie's bandmates Julian Baker and Lucy Dacus, whose harmonies turn the track into a communal hymn. It's a song about standing by someone to the darkest hours, about finding strength not just in romance but in companionship. Amid the album's heaviness, Graceland 2 feels like a gentle hand on the shoulder. Finally, we arrive at I Know the End, the album's cathartic climax. It begins small and personal, with Bridges singing about driving through familiar streets haunted by memories, but then it builds and it until explodes. Horns blare, voices scream, and drums thunder. The song captures the feeling of the world unraveling, fitting for an album released in 2020, but it also feels timeless, like the sound of endings themselves. Yet even in that chaos there is release, a kind of a strange joy in surrendering to the inevitable. In 11 tracks, Punisher traces the counters of loneliness, love, doubt, and collapse, weaving them into a whole that feels both deeply personal and universally resonant. It's an album that doesn't just tell stories, it creates an atmosphere, a world you step into and don't quite leave behind. From the ghostly beginnings of DVD Menu to the apocalyptic crescendo of I Know the End, Bridges crafts a journey that feels haunting, devastating, and oddly comforting all at once.